thing so special, isn't it, that you get to meet people and you open yourself up to maybe be vulnerable with somebody else, and you might become friends. You never know what would happen. Maybe a record deal. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That could be possible. But God is so good, and I'm just blessed that a friendship for an introvert like me to last this long, it's pretty good. And I'm very blessed by that. I've been married, this year will be 25 years. I've been married to the same woman, Debbie. Yeah, thank you. I was looking for that. Thank you very much. And so we're excited about that. And we, about 17 years into our marriage, we had a little girl. Her name is Mirren Star Martinez. And I'm obviously not Scottish, so that's a Scottish name. I don't know why I like that name. And she loves The Hobbit, Narnia, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings. So I feel like I'm doing my job okay. And she loves Jesus, too. I'm so sorry. She does. She tells me, like, can we read the Bible every once in a while, Dad? That'd be great. So, so for the longest time, I grew up, I was a pastor's son in the Assemblies of God, in a Spanish-speaking Assemblies of God. So we experienced a lot of amazing things, and I grew up singing Spanish hymns, and then I ran away from God when I was young, and I resented God. My dad was let go of his position as a pastor. For now, looking back, I can probably see why, but at the time I was 12 and I didn't understand, and I thought that the church equaled cynicism, sarcasm, and defeat and hypocrisy. And I just said, look, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. And it wasn't until I was 18 and I had a friend who was also a pastor's kid who went to the mission field, who lived out a life that was very much devoted and surrendered to God in a very real and authentic way. And it inspired me and showed me that there really are people who are just trying to look for the Lord and seek him. So I went to Youth with a Mission, and I was there for 10 years. And I served mostly in Belarus, which is now in the news right now, as they're assisting Russia in the invasion of Ukraine. And I've got friends in Ukraine, and I've got friends in Belarus who are trying to leave, and praying for them right now. And so I think of them a lot. I've always thought of them. And I was able to take Brandon with me to Belarus. And I met my wife there, but she's from Missouri, and I would always introduce her as I met her in Belarus. And she would run sound for us in the back, and people would go and talk to her very slowly and say, "Your English is really good." And she'd say, "Thank you." I'm from Jackson, Missouri. It is pretty good. So so I stopped introducing her like that. Yeah. So all that to say is that it was through this time in the mission field, I felt like God was calling me more towards music. I was writing music, and then I was pursuing mostly a secular record deal, and we were being talked to by some labels. And then we got signed we decided to sign with a Christian record label that was just starting out of Seattle, called Centricity Records. And that's went on to be Lauren Daigle's and Jordan Felice's record label, and Jason Gray and Andrew Peterson. And so we were the first band. My band was called Circle Slide, and we were signed to this record label. And looking back, I see all the things I did wrong. And basically what I'm going to share with you is some of the lessons that I've learned from doing things the wrong way. And now I've been a worship pastor at a Southern Baptist church in Missouri called Linwood Baptist Church. And it's been so good. It's been a healing and restorative time for me. I've got a daughter. I'm not on the road anymore. I'm just spending time with my family, and I love it, and pouring into this church. And so God's done some things in me, and I'm going to share with you, something very practical. This is almost like a breakout session, so you're going to forgive me that when I was hearing Brett speak last night, I was being restored and drawn into the Word. And this is going to be more like practical, like here's what I've learned type stuff. And so that's what I felt like doing. It felt like something authentic for me. So I'm coming from John 21, and I'm going to ask if someone that has a loud voice wouldn't mind reading John 21, 18. Is it, I want to say it's verse 18. It's when Jesus is restoring Peter. Starting at 18. Who wants to maybe take that? John 21, 18. It's where Jesus says, okay, thank you, yes. Yes, please.
I assure you, when you were young, you would tie your belt and walk wherever you wanted. But when you grow you don't want to go. He said this to signify by what kind of death he would glorify God. After saying this, he told him, "Follow me."
That's awesome. Go back up if you don't mind and just read verses 17. Go back up. I'm so sorry. Yeah, go up to 15. I'm so sorry. Read 15 through 17. That was beautiful, but I told you the wrong scripture. read, but I loved hearing you read that. That was beautiful. John 20, 15 through 17. Do that. Sorry.
When they had eaten breakfast,
Yes.
Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?"
Mm.
"Yes, Lord," he said to him, "you know that I love you.
Mm.
Feed my lambs," he told him. A second time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," he said to him, "you know that I love you. Shepherd my sheep," he told him. He asked him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved that he asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Feed my sheep," Jesus said. "I assure you."
That's good. That's it. Thank you. That's beautiful. So that's where we're gonna kind of take our cue from that passage in Scripture where Jesus is asking Peter if he loves him. And we all know that Peter denied Jesus. We know the story. We know Peter's life probably better than any disciple. And here's Jesus doing something very loving and gracious to him. He's saying, "Do you love me? Feed my sheep." So all of us in here probably in some way lead worship, either in some capacity. How many of you are actually worship leaders at your church? Let me see. How many of you serve in like a media kind of capacity, like an assistant? That's awesome. The rest of you, I'm just guessing, do you serve on the praise team? Are any of you like just part of like the praise team and just kind of serve under somebody? Okay, we got some people like that. Well, all of us, in any capacity, in any place that you're at right now, you're a leader, whether you realize it or not. And people are needing leaders now more than ever. As an introvert, this scripture hits me because what it's basically saying is I cannot love God in a vacuum. My relationship with God requires me to take actions that directly involve me loving those around me. And so that means if I love God, I must forgive my brother. If I'm to love him more than the rest, I must care for those whom he loves. That's what it means to be a Christ follower. He restores us so that we can restore others. He forgives us so that we can extend forgiveness to others. He loves us so that we can love others. And so as a worship leader or as a pastor, how can we feed the sheep and the lambs and take care of the sheep that he's entrusted to us or that we're around? Because that's basically what he's asking us to do. He's not asking us to put the best, make the best set up here and do and perform. Although that is kind of what we're doing, but really in essence what he's asking us is to love, take care, and feed the sheep. And so using the gifts that we have, how do we do that? So I'm going to give you guys some practical, this is going to sound like I'm taking a complete left turn, but this is what I've learned to be a kind, considerate leader to my team. And maybe this will help you, maybe this won't. I hope it does. So one of the things that I've learned from being on the road and then from being at this church now for about 6 years, like I said, is don't set your team up to fail. And like, what does that mean? I see a lot of people who have great intentions. They have all the right passion, and they're praying, and they're doing all the things, and yet they're doing some little things that set their teams up to fail and make things frustrating, and you see people burn out and leave and decide they don't want to be a part of the team anymore or whatever. And that's going to happen anyway. But there's some things that we can do, I think, that are real practical, real simple stuff, and that might help you, that I see other people doing, and I'm like, if they only knew this little thing, or if I could have talked to myself back then, this is what I would say. So, first off, long rehearsals. Stop doing long rehearsals. I was recently at a thing where we put together all this big mega praise team of all the worship leaders in our city. We all got together and did something called D Now. Anybody do D Now from the No Baptist? That's right, I forgot. So it's like discipleship now. These youth groups get together and they all have like a weekend together. And it was a 4-hour rehearsal for like 3 or 4 songs. Drummer was late for an hour and we waited. And then the drummer was doing the thing where they had the phone and they were listening to the song for the first time. So But that's the extreme example of that. But I do see sometimes worship leaders who don't know the songs as well as they should, and so they frustrate the people that they're serving under because it's hard. So nobody's perfect. You're not going to always get it right, but do your best to have your charts. If you have charts, have them out for everybody, and just do what you can. Pick a time that seems reasonable. We try to stick to about an hour. We meet on Wednesday nights, and that's when we have a big meal for everybody. So it makes sense, and it's easy for us, but I know not all churches have that ability to do that. And people work, and people have families, so try to pick a time, and maybe just make an hour if you do rehearse. I know some churches don't rehearse at all, and if you don't rehearse, that's okay, but have something prepared for your team when you meet on Sunday, and just have everything ready for them to go so they can just show up and go through the stuff and do their thing. Some bigger churches, like Elevation, they just they send planning center invites. You get your charts, you listen, and you show up on Sunday. There's no rehearsal. You just get up and you play, and that's when you're at a certain ginormous level of doing that. But that could be very stressful if your team is just volunteers. So be cautious and kind and generous to your teammates, and shorten your rehearsals if you can. That'll go a long way. The other thing is make the rehearsal fun if you can. Don't make it all work. That's what I used to do. I used to be all business. Show up. I wouldn't even say hi. People just show up, and I'm like, all right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, let's rehearse. And nobody's had a chance to shake another person's hand. But like I said, I tend to view things as like projects. I tend to look at things as work. Let's get the job done. We did this. See ya. I'll see you next week. And some people need more than that. Some people need a little bit of community, a little bit of friendship. So make sure your rehearsals are fun if you can. Try to do all that you can to have a fun time and a collaborative time. The other thing I'm learning to do is, so that's first, make your rehearsals short. That'll go a long way. Number 2, pastor your team. Even if you're not the pastor, hear what I'm trying to say. Check up on your team. Ask them how they're doing spiritually. They're not just musicians. They're not just a guitar player or a bass player or a drummer or a singer. That's not who they are. They're people. They're God's sheep. They're the people that Jesus cares about. So something I'm learning to do, and this is from the context of a very bad introvert that does not do well at community, and I'm not naturally inclined to go let's hang out. Let's just do something together and just spend time. I tend to like projects, and they have a starting point and an ending point, and then I can sneak off. That's my favorite thing. But at any rate, check up on your team. So what I do is I'm starting to do this thing where I send a text message to my team, and I just say, hey, how are you doing with your relationship with God? Give me a number from 1 through 5. Just every week, just 1 through 5. Just give me a little number. And most people will give you a 4 or a 3, because they're not everybody. Nobody says 5. Except one young college guy. He always sends me, he's doing 5. And I'm like, you're the guy who struggles the most. But he does 5. He's always like, I'm doing great. But if anybody sends you a 2 or a 1, set up a time to go get coffee with them and just say, hey, you sent me. It's anonymous, so you're not sending a group text. You're sending it individually. But they're sending it back to you, and they're saying, hey, I'm struggling. It looks like I'm doing great, but I'm struggling. Just grab coffee, ask them how they're doing, how you can pray with them. You can't solve their problems, but you can definitely pray and be there. And that definitely will go a long way to creating a healthy team where they realize that you're not just looking at them as a guitar player. And worship leaders, if I'm saying things that you're doing with good intentions, this is not to judge you. I do these things. I'm saying these are lessons that I've learned the hard way to not do. So I'm not judging you. I do these things. I tend to look at people and say, hey, you're the guitar player, learn your part, do your thing, and I'll feed you and go home. So that's not that's not Jesus' way. That's not the way he wants us to do. So that's just a little thing I've learned. Maybe there's something else you can do. Ask the Lord, be creative, and ask him to find ways where you can check up on your team. If you are the worship pastor, that is your job. Pastor your team. But if you're maybe part-time, if you're a volunteer, there's just easy ways you can just kind of check up on people and set up times to do that. Fun. So find ways to set up times to have fun. So I try to do lunch with our team. I try to create times where we maybe do a movie night, scavenger hunts, just have times to do that. Something that I'm doing is I learned this from another conference, so I'm stealing this idea from somebody else. But I started doing, we have a production meeting in the mornings, and it's always hard. I'm horrible. I'm not a morning person. We get up, and I have these dumb little dollar gold medals that I bought from like Hobby Lobby or something, and they're literally like $5 for like 30 of them. So I came up with little awards to give people in front of everybody. So my drummer is the guy that lets me sleep at night. When I know he's going to be on stage on Saturday night, I sleep fine. If he's not, I have restless nights and I worry about Sunday morning. So I gave him the Ambient Award. I called him my ambient person, and I gave him the Ambient Award, and he took that, he received it, he was so happy. It was silly, it's goofy, it takes a couple of seconds, but it lets them, and then I tried to do something individually for every person and recognize something that they're bringing to the table, even if it's just for me, but one of the girls, she really treats the whole team like a family. To her, we're family. It's not just like a job. So there's that meme of a Fast and Furious, Dom, the guy from Dom, and he's like, we're not just whatever, we're family or whatever. He's all about family. And so I gave her a picture of Vin Diesel, and I gave it to her. I said, this is you, you're Vin Diesel to our team, and she's completely, doesn't look anything like Vin Diesel. But anyway, it's the family award because she treats us like family, she makes us like a family. So just little things, goofy things like that, and if you can, I try to give them a gift card, but even if I just gave them that medal, it's just everybody laughs, and before Sunday morning, before we hit the stage, we're recognizing somebody for something they're doing that's fun. So try to make things fun if you can. I know that's general and generic. God will give you great wisdom, I know, as you go forward and try to figure something out for that. If your team has graduations where someone's graduating, there's a new baby, show up for those moments. Be present for those moments. If someone's in the hospital, go visit them in the hospital room. I know this sounds like you guys already know this, but these are the things that make a difference in people's lives. These are the things that people remember more so than the times on stage. When it's all said and done, if God calls you to a different church, it'll be those times that you were there for people, not that you hit the note right on stage, not that you did the lick perfect. It's that you were there for each other. That's what people are going to remember. So, and there's going to be there are going to be storms. There are going to be times of trial. Here's something else. So that's that. I'm going to be skipping all over the place, and I beg your pardon for that. But spread the wealth. That's what I call this part. Spread the wealth. Give team members songs, opportunities that they can succeed at. Challenge the ones that have the most potential. Be gentle with the ones that are limited skill-wise. So look for opportunities to set people up to succeed. Maybe you see that there's somebody that likes to play harmonica. So Brett was so generous today. He could have said, this is about me. I've got these great country songs, and if I ask someone to play harmonica, they're going to step on my parts. But instead, Brett was more generous. He said, come on up, play with me, and let's do this. Let's have fun. So I had fun, and we were having a good time. And he set me up to succeed because I could do that. And I can tell he's had experience. You know, he knows what to do there. So that's beautiful. And you'll get there with time. If you're new to this comes with time. It comes with age and wisdom and experience and all those things. But there are people on your team that maybe aren't sopranos. Don't give them the highest soprano song in the wrong key. Find keys that work for them. Maybe your bass player is still learning. Don't give them the hardest bass. Like maybe choose a song if they're part of your team. This is all practical stuff, I know. But I see people making these mistakes, and I'm trying to share some things that I've learned again. So spread the wealth. And there's a scripture in Luke where Jesus says, Luke 14:8-11. I do have the right scripture here. I put it on my iPad. It says, when someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when the host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So if you're signed to a record deal and you're the artist and you're supposed to be on the stage, do that, and do that well. But as worship leaders, there's another element to what we're doing, and it's far better to try to make others shine and set other people up to succeed on your team. Give them the songs, and if your pastor tells you, if your senior pastor or your lead pastor says, hey, we want to hear more of you, That's kind of this principle where they're saying, I want to hear you lead the worship. That's why we're paying you, or that's why we're giving you a check or whatever. And then you can do more. I try to limit myself to like maybe one song on Sunday. And you know, there are people who don't like the way I sound when I sing, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. But that's why spreading the wealth and giving other team members opportunities to do their thing is a good idea. And here's the thing, it's harder. On Sunday, people back out. There's people that aren't going to be there, and so you have to step up and just do more songs. That's going to happen. It's more work to work with somebody and get them to another place. But that's really where I think God's calling us to be, is to develop other leaders and equip them to do more stuff. So another key ingredient I learned is to find a stage manager. How many of you guys have a stage manager at your church? Okay, that's all right. Okay, you guys have one. And if you're not a big church, that's probably going to not be true. But it's still okay to find somebody who, what I mean by stage manager, is someone who's making sure the cables are straight on stage, making sure you have a battery in your pack, making sure there's water, somebody that is allowing you to be maybe more mindful of what's going to happen on that Sunday morning, where you're not running around trying to fix the technical stuff that's happening. And I'm crazy if I'm setting things up on stage and I have to fix my guitar, or I have to think about other people's batteries, or if the drummer has sticks, or if the sound guy has done all the things he's supposed to do, then I can't it's hard for me to remember the right chords and the right lyrics, because my brain is not working in that same creative space. So having somebody there that'll be with you, that can help do those things that require us to be technically great, that's been super helpful. And they feel like they're part of the team. And I try not to call people, I try not to call the band the worship team, and then the band the production or media. We're just all the worship team. We're the worship team. And there's and in that way, your stage manager doesn't feel like they're just a cog in the machine. They're part of the worship team. You're doing this next step right now. Attend conferences. You're doing that now, and that's so important. I'm learning, as somebody who's been doing this a long, long time, that when I go to a conference, I learn something that I hadn't thought of before. And like that metal thing that I told you about, I learned that at a conference, at the SALT conference in Nashville. And someone was just talking about things that they do. So attend conference and try to, if you can. I noticed this group here, they brought a lot of people with them, and they brought more than just you guys are from, yeah, Northwest. Yeah, and you guys, I love that you guys are here as a team, and that means that you guys are going to be on the same page when you go home. Someone won't have to like download this information to everybody and say, it was so great. And the other person, oh, that's nice, good for you. I had to work. So that's, if you can, it's not always going to work out, but if you can, attend a conference together. So the other thing I was going to say was, celebrate the little wins. Be an encourager. If someone does a great solo, or if somebody decides to jump and do a different instrument, or somebody just does something really great, try to recognize those things and make sure they don't leave without you saying, hey, great job. That was awesome. And just be the cheerleader of the team. Here's why I say that. Because when I was on the road with my band and I made a mistake, let's say I didn't play the right thing, I'd get bummed out. Or somebody forgot to do the right thing. There's been several times where the record label, or one time we opened for Casting Crowns, I'll never forget, it was 10,000 people at Six Flags or something. And this is before tracks were on laptops. We had these dumb tracks, and our drummer played the wrong tracks. We did the whole Ashley Simpson thing where the tracks were wrong, and none of us, we didn't have in-ears, we had floor wedges, and so we didn't know what song he was playing. So we started the wrong song. The tracks were playing something different. 10,000 people just kind of going like this to us. The record labels drove up from Nashville to see us. They did not stay to say bye to us. They went back to Nashville without talking to the band. It was devastating. And those moments stayed with me, so I was miserable. After moments like that, it just stayed with me, and I was a horrible person to be around, when I could have just been like, guys, it's okay. You know what I mean? That would have been hard that day. But when you're leading worship, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things you don't hit. All the rehearsal in the world sometimes can't prepare you for just something going wrong. Don't be the negative person on your team. That's what I'm trying to say. Be the positive person. Let people know it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. You know, there were only 10 people in the crowd today, so don't worry about that. But I used to take it very hard, and my wife would tell me, she's like, you're making everybody around you miserable, and this is not fun anymore. And so I had to learn the hard way to change my attitude and choose to have a good attitude and to find the positive that we did. And to remember it's not about these little moments, it's about this eternal thing that we're doing. We're leading people to the Lord. So, you know, Moses was kept out of the promised land for disobedience, but it was born out of a bad attitude. He was angry. He was frustrated. And God told him to speak to the rock and to let water come out, and he smacked the rock with his stick. And does God have grace? Yes, God has grace for us. But that attitude and that act had consequences. He was kept out of the promised land. Moses was one of the best leaders of all time. I know I'm not as good a leader as Moses. And yet, I can learn from that mistake and say, choose a positive attitude and try to be encouraging. And don't strike the rocks. Don't give God a bad reputation because your attitude, you can't control your attitude. And listen, it's hard. There are times when it's very hard. Working in churches is not easy, but there's something we can do. We can control our attitudes. And lastly, I think I'm seeing, listen, I'm going to share something. I'm seeing a lot of worship leaders fall into sin. And it's stressful. I know the job is stressful. And we all have things that we go to for comfort that aren't of the Lord. So find someone, maybe that's not in your church, but find someone that you can talk to that can hold you accountable. I'm seeing so many people break up churches because of unfaithfulness in marriages, because of addictions, and it's part of who we are. We're broken people, and that's part of why we're here, right? We're trying to learn. But a simple, very practical way is to just talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I have a struggle. I have an addiction, or I have a temptation. And when you talk to someone you can trust, that goes a long way. Someone holding you accountable. It's tough sometimes when you work in a church. I understand. You may not want to tell your senior pastor everything that you're going through, but find somebody. Find someone you can talk to about some of these things. So finally, here's the last thing I'll share. Two more things. Talk to the fellow worshipers in town, worship leaders. Chances are your fellow worship leaders are going through a lot of the same struggles that are unique to your area. So I know some pastors aren't keen on like you doing maybe a worship night with multiple churches. Sometimes that's like looked down upon. But I don't think anybody would have a problem with you getting lunch or coffee with some of the other worship leaders and just hanging out and talking and just sharing struggles. That's something that I've learned to do in my hometown. And it's been so amazing to hear that I'm not alone. Because I grew up, I'm a like I said, Pentecostal Hispanic guy, and I serve in a mostly all-white conservative environment. And so when I'm leading and not everybody's raising their hands or clapping and people are just kind of looking, I can take that really personally. And I think, man, I must be doing something wrong. It must be something, maybe I stink or maybe I said something. But then when I talk to the other worship leaders, everyone's like, no, man, that's just the way things are here in this area of Missouri. It's our struggle too. And I go, oh, I'm taking it way too personal, making it about me, and it's just something we're all dealing with. So maybe there's something unique to your area that just talking to the other worship leaders in your area might help with. One time I met with these guys, and I was telling Brandon this story, that were from the way bigger church in town, and they met with me for lunch, and after lunch, they said, hey, what do you need at your church? I'm like, well, I'm struggling with our lights. I can't seem to get our lights right. They came, they took another couple of hours from their day, and they were lighting. They all went to college for lighting. And so they were like, let's fix your lights. And they did everything to like a technically amazing degree of lighting. And they made our stage look better. It just was like amazing, just a couple of little things. And they taught me so much. And just from getting lunch with them. So sometimes just getting lunch will not only allow you to like open up to what's God's doing in your area and maybe the unique struggles, but also maybe you can find some places where you can serve them and they can serve you, and not be so territorial. That's been helpful to me. Okay, last one, and then I may open up for questions if we have time. But this one is going to be maybe the most controversial one of the whole group, and take long vacations. And here's what I mean. I'm learning that taking leading worship on Sunday, and then taking like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, and then coming back on Saturday to get ready for Sunday. I'm not really on vacation. I'm still thinking about Sunday. I need to take a Sunday off and then another Sunday off. I know that sounds insane. 2 Sundays. Your pastor may not love you after this. That's why I'm saying it's controversial. But if you're building people up and you're getting your team ready, try to get your team ready so they can leave without you, and then try to take a long vacation. This is obviously, I'm talking to maybe if you're on staff at the church. But get recharged is what I'm trying to say. Charge your batteries up. Because I think what happens to a lot of us is we serve and we think we're doing this with good intentions and we're burning ourselves out. And we don't have anything in the tank left for those around us. We're so it's been a crazy 2 years, you guys. It's been hard. It's been tough. Some of us have had to learn how to stream for the first time. Some of us are dealing with Facebook shutting down your songs when you play your opening stuff, and you're having to learn skills that you didn't know you needed. And you're playing to an empty group, and you see 3 people engaging with you on your stream and all that stuff. This is hard. And so the thinking probably in your mind is, if I work harder, it'll be better. But it's true, we do. When we're working, let's work. Let's give it our best. But please take time for yourself. That's so important. Make time for your family. Make time for the people that you love. Let them recharge you. Recharge them. I'm learning that when I take long vacations, I come back to the church, and a lot of the things that bothered me, like I think I need to quit my job. I can't serve here anymore. After a little vacation, I come back, I'm like, what was that thing that was bothering me? Oh yeah, that person, it doesn't bother me anymore. It's not that big a deal. It's like being hungry, like that hangry feeling starts to build up after a year, 2 years, and you're not charging up your batteries, just taking some time off, spending time with your family. So this is just something practical. And so I'll just end with this kind of concept here. When Jesus says, love my lambs, take care of my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep, don't forget that you are one of those sheep. Don't forget, you're one of the sheep that God loves, and he wants you to care and feed the person, yourself. Care for yourself. Love yourself as if you're someone that you love. Treat yourself like maybe some of you are dog people, and you love your dog. And your dog, you would never let them miss medication if the vet said they need to take this medication, once in the morning and once at night. You would make sure, open that dog's jaws and put peanut butter on it and make sure they eat it. But then if the doctor said, hey, I need you to take medication in the morning at night, and you skip, that's okay. That's all right, I'll be okay. Treat yourself like you're somebody that you love. Treat yourself like God loves you. And don't forget that that's something you're supposed to do as well. So these are things that have been helpful to me, and I'm learning still to do these things. I don't do these things perfectly by any means or stretch, but I am trying to get better and better at these things. So